The Outer Side is proudly supported by Tie Gear. Head to www.tiegear.com to explore the wide range of high-quality camping essentials, including guy ropes, screw-in tent pegs, tie-downs, and heaps more. Tie Gear. Adventure secured. Dog and Gun Coffee. Check out www.dogandguncoffee.com to grab yourself some bloody good coffee ready for adventure. G'day and welcome to The Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode I'm joined by Benny Plunkett. Welcome to the show, mate.
Mate, it's good to be here.
So, how would you describe yourself? Your bio says you're an adventurer and a filmmaker. What else are you doing?
It's a good question. I never really know how to answer that because I don't feel like I fit in one box. I don't know if any of us do, really.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm curious,
Yeah.
storyteller, bit of an explorer, like ruffling a few feathers here and there.
Yeah, good.
And yeah, love a good old-fashioned adventure.
Yeah, sick. So, your your focus at the moment is on adventure filmmaking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it keeps me pretty busy. A lot of the time I'm working on my own passion projects,
Sick.
which I've been tinkering away at for the last, say, year or two, working on two separate ones. And then to pay the bills, I guide. So been sort of doing a bit of FIFO guiding work around the country. So just recently worked up in Cape York. I'll take my camera along and look after high school students for 10 days, and I'll put together like an after movie of the experience as well, so I can hit them with two bills.
Yeah, right.
Because guiding doesn't pay the best. And so that sort of helps me keep my finger on the pulse with the younger generation, because ultimately they're the ones I really want to influence in some of the films I'm working on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like work when you're up there out on country. We did another recent trip to the Daintree rainforest, and that was unreal, just like cruising around, filming cassowaries and
sick.
having an absolute ball. So yeah, that's been keeping me pretty busy.
So how did you get started in this? Like, did you grow up in the outdoors? Were you like going on adventures and all that sort of stuff, or was it something that came later in life?
Yeah, from the get-go, Dad got us into the outdoors from a young age. I remember, because we grew up in Canberra, and right on the outskirts of Canberra, and my brother and I would be out building pushy jumps, building cubby houses, running amok. And as soon as I got my P's, it was down to the coast every weekend, surfing, bodyboarding, snorkelling.
Yeah.
And I feel like I never really got that good at one sport, but kind of got a okay grasp on quite a few different sports.
Yeah.
And the main ones sort of being, like soccer, water polo, then a bit of like rock climbing, cliff jumping, backcountry skiing, snowboarding, and then I sort of like shifted out of the outdoors and found the beer, the mighty beer.
Yes.
And went down that rabbit hole for a while and did the whole festival scene. And I blinked and woke up one morning and I wouldn't say wasted, like I had a good time, but the first half of my 20s, I was just partying and doing a degree I didn't want to do. And then I put that degree off to the side and got into guiding and really fell back in love with the outdoors.
Sick.
And ever since have just been on this path. I don't know where it's going, but I feel like I'm on the right track.
That's so good, man. And look, what you just said resonates with me so much. I might have done it for a bit longer than just the first half of my 20s, but I know a lot of my audience and a lot of my mates, we did the same thing. Like, we were right into our fishing and outdoor stuff, and then you turn 18 and the party scene gets like, you get a bit carried away with it for a while. And then for me, I came all the way back to the point where now I don't even drink, and like I'm just focused on being in the outdoors as much as possible. And it's funny how that sort of goes, but I think, you can't regret it. It's all part of it. But it's interesting. I think it's a pretty common sort of thing.
Oh, for sure. And don't get me wrong, it was some of the funnest years of my life. I had a great time, and it probably wasn't the first 5 years of my 20s. It was probably like from 16 to like 26, It kind of dragged on a bit there. But I was sort of realised that when I was partying a lot, there was a correlation between not seeing the beauty in the outdoors as much. Like growing up in Canberra, I'm like, mate, like this is unreal. There's so much to do. We've got bush on our doorstep, never ran out of stuff to do. And then entered my teens and early 20s, and I'm like, Canberra's ordinary. There's nothing to do here. Yeah. And now coming around full circle and heading back every 6 months to work on this project or however often it is, I'm seeing the beauty again. Yeah. And so yeah, I find that really interesting. My relationship with the outdoors has come down to my own perception of it and where I'm at with it myself.
Absolutely, man. And there's beauty everywhere in the outdoors. Like, you don't have to go to the middle of nowhere, right? Like, it's literally all around us in Australia. It's just that appreciation and like taking that step back and just really like looking at it for what it is.
Yeah, and even just slowing down. Like, I used to purely use the outdoors as a playground, and you know, I go to a waterfall and think, where's the biggest cliff to jump off? Like, what is the biggest fish to catch? And recently, when working on this project that we might get into at some point,
for sure.
I've got there and I had an injured groin, I had an injured arm. I'd recently had a cliff jumping accident where I'd been hanging on to a high line, which is kind of like a tightrope between two cliffs, and I was 25 meters above the water, and I was swinging on it, and I tried to like dismount off the line and do a backflip and land in the water, completely cooked it and landed straight on my head, burst my eardrum. Was lucky to get out of it relatively unscathed.
Wow.
Other than that, and I nursed that injury for 6 months, and so it meant that I couldn't free dive, I couldn't snorkel, couldn't surf, couldn't run because of my groin, couldn't climb because of my arm, and I was going out to this waterfall like, what am I even going to do here? Like, I can't do any of my favorite things, and it made me saw the place in a different light. And I got a new macro lens, started shooting macro photography, and started viewing this place in a way that I'd never viewed it before, and just picking up rubbish. 9 times out of 10, I went out there, I was by myself, and every single time I learned something new about the place and just grew a new appreciation for it. So something that I try to pass on to some of the kids that I'm taking on trips, it's like, you don't necessarily need to always go get your adrenaline rush. There's other ways to get your fix just by slowing down and appreciating.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say guiding, what do you mean by that? Like, are you talking about like guided tours, or what does guiding mean?
Yeah, it's a broad kind of thing, but often it's with high school students. Just so happens to be a lot of like upper echelon Sydney, Melbourne students that are at private schools. And so we'll take them on a trip between 5 and 10 days. The first couple of days, they're kind of just like, holy moly, like this is pretty overwhelming. We're teaching them how to use tents, teaching them how to cook, trying not to let them roam off and die, essentially. And then as the week goes, trying to like subtly intertwine just lessons throughout the picture, just stories. As you know, stories are a good way to pass on a bit of wisdom without feeling like you rammed it down their throat. And yeah, just trying to keep them safe. And sometimes I'll work for crews where it's very micromanaged and you're in a safe, contained environment, and you're pretty much just helping them get from one activity to another, and there's not much spare time. But then recently working for another crew, we pick them up, we're in troopies, we do all the shopping with them, we're driving around, we're facilitating all the activities, we're out on country working with the TOs, we're picking up rubbish, we're working in turtle rehab centres, taking them snorkeling, and everything in between. So yeah, it was something that I wish I found earlier on in life, instead of coming straight out of college and not knowing what to do and jumping into a degree I didn't want to do. I kind of wish I just did a gap year doing a Cert 3, Cert 4 in outdoor leadership, because even if I wasn't going to use it, it makes you a really well-rounded, capable human. And, you know, you learn to reverse a trailer, you learn to cook, you learn to wipe your own butt.
Just life skills stuff.
Yeah, really important. And it's good to pass that on to some of these younger kids coming up that haven't been exposed to the bush.
So is that a thing, outdoor leadership? Can you study that?
Yeah. Cert 3, Cert 4. You can do it at Newcastle, Blue Mountains, all major cities. And I'm pretty sure it's still government subsidised. So yeah, if anyone's listening out there and has a youngster that doesn't know what to do, even sometimes you've got mature age students coming that are 30, 40, 50, hooking in, they get their hiking quals, canoeing quals, climbing, whatever you want. You can kind of tailor it to suit. And I got my canyoning quals, hiking, like climbing, backcountry stuff.
Yeah, wow.
And yes, snorkeling, surfing. And yeah, the pay's not too bad. Like once you've got your Cert 4, and it takes 6 months, 3 to 4 days a week to get your Cert 3, and that helps you like look after yourself and start to facilitate. And then the Cert 4 is taking it the step further, and you're like actually like designing programs, and you're doing logistics and really taking it to the next step. And so you can do it in 12 months, or if you have a bit of background knowledge and, you know, twist a few arms, skip the Cert 3, go straight into the Cert 4, and within 6 months you're qualified, and you can go straight into anywhere between 400, 450 a day.
Yeah, wow.
So, and then
doing stuff that you like. That's the most important part, right?
Yeah, but the asterisk is you're sometimes working 16-hour days.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I did a recent trip up to the Kimberley, and it was my first time working for this crew. A few days in, we're out on country and looking after these girls. It was 40 degrees, laying the swag, stripped down. I'm just like, oh, finally done for the day, like you beauty. And the lady that had us on her property, she starts squealing her head off this 70-year-old Swiss lady. And she's like, Ben. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Put my Dax on, run up. Some of the locals had started a bushfire a kilometre away from where all of us were. And so I spent the next 3-4 hours out in a little buggy and then in the car with the head fire in the area, showing where all the fire breaks are and just watching them put out fires. And I had my camera just documenting the whole thing.
Yeah, wild.
And then the next day, spoke to the boss and stuff, and he's just like essentially like, yeah, like get back to work sort of thing, and just another day at the office. So there's curveballs that come, but you know, often you're prepared to deal with them. It's just sometimes the TAFE system won't necessarily set you up for everything, because it's like life. You can't predict exactly what's going to happen.
Especially not in the outdoors, and that's for me part of the appeal, right? Like the unknown, and you know, those curveballs, and like, you know, with a lot of the four-wheel drive stuff we do, you can plan everything, but you can't plan for everything. Yeah. And it's that like adapting and overcoming the situation as it arises that for me is the exciting part, right?
And it's like they say true adventure starts when stuff starts going wrong. And I like that. You know, sometimes I'll set myself up for a hard time intentionally and take not enough food, take minimal gear, last minute. Like the first time I ever did an overnight sea kayaking trip, I was in Exmouth. I decided the Friday night, right, I'm going to go tomorrow. I gave myself 3 hours to pack, and I borrowed a sea kayak and went straight into an 8-day paddle.
Yes.
And I started the paddle, and I'm like, something is not right here. Like waves are coming in, and I had to get 15 Ks up the road, and I'm looking around and I'm like, something's not right. And it wasn't until I finished the trip that I realized I was missing a skirt.
Oh, good.
And so the skirt keeps the water out of the sea kayak. And for the first few days, my boat was getting bloody full of water. And I'm like, I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
But by getting out there in the deep end, you're kind of forced to just figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
That's so good, man. So good. It's I do have one question. What were you studying at uni that you decided wasn't for you?
Building construction management.
Yeah.
So a lot of my mates were going to go be tradies, and I was sort of going down that path as well. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can just be like the program coordinator of the tradies and sit in an office and get paid a bit more. And I got 3/4 the way through that degree, and my heart was never in it from the get-go, and got back from Canada after doing 6 months on exchange and was like, nah, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm getting into guiding. So still learn a bit, but ultimately was a bit of a waste of time. Got a pretty hefty Hextet sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah, good. What a change though, from building management to guiding. It's a big deviation, eh?
Yeah. And then like the filmmaking side of things, that's kind of tied in really nicely with the guiding. Like as soon as I finished my Cert 4, I went and had an interview for a full-time job, and they essentially gave me the job, but it wasn't going to start for 2 or 3 months. And so at the end of the interview, I'm like, hey, by the way, I make videos. And I like had no idea what I was doing. Just like I threw GoPro videos together of my own little adventures. And I kind of just like, you know, like made it seem like I knew what I was doing. And they gave me an opportunity to make a pilot video, and it went really well. And then I got a job as a digital content communications officer and guide. So for the next 2 years, I was running the marketing, playing a part of the marketing and making all the videos for an outdoor ed organisation. And then whenever they were short of guides, I was qualified and everything, so they just chucked me in last minute. And I got the best of both worlds. So I kind of got to hone my skills with the camera in the field. And now when I'm guiding, I can sort of just do both on cruise control because I've done a bit of both.
So you've got no formal training in like video or content production, cinematography, any of that?
Oh, no, I've been to YouTube University, bro.
Oh, yeah. Same. I'm still not very good at it.
Yeah.
It's amazing what is available out there, hey?
Oh, it's there on a platter. Like, if people want to get into it, it's never been a better time to.
Dude, like, video editing is so complex, right? And then if I want to do something, I'm still not a good video editor by any means. Anyone that's watched this show on YouTube would know that. But I'm like, if only I knew how to do this. And you just type it into YouTube and there's step-by-step tutorials and you're like, oh, okay, now I know how to do that. Like, it's pretty crazy what you can learn via YouTube, hey?
Or if you want anything bad enough, there's steps there how to do it. Just ask old mate ChatGPT and they'll lay it out for you.
I haven't dabbled in that. Like, I've resisted the AI thing for a while now, but I was just on a 4-wheel drive trip and one of the boys was saying, like, he can ask ChatGPT how to change like a CV in a particular model of car and it'll give him like step-by-step instructions on how to change that part on the car. He's like, you don't need any mechanical understanding. Like, it will tell you what tools you need and the steps that you need to follow. I'm like, it's pretty wild.
It is, and I've been really resistant to it as well. I feel like a part of like my creative essence is going to get slowly sucked out of me if I continue to use it. But then there's another part of me that is really leaning into this investigative journalism sort of realm, and I'm having to read like 100+ page documents, and even like I've interviewed over 100 people in the last 18 months, and I can go on ChatGPT and be like, hey, I'm going to interview David Pocock, give me a full list of his achievements, things that he's heavily critiqued on, and some curveball questions that I should ask him, or just something like that, and it'll just pump it out straight away. So there's ways to use it to your advantage. And there's a saying, if I can remember, it's like, ChatGPT won't take your job, but someone that knows how to use it will. And I feel like that rings true in a lot of industries. But, you know, one thing that isn't going away anytime soon is storytelling. And if you can be there and capture stuff in the moment that can't be replicated, I can't see a robot doing that anytime soon, or like tagging along on a 10-day school trip and making a highlight video.
No.
You know, it's not.
Well, hopefully, I may be wrong, but I can't see AI taking over podcasting anytime soon, so maybe I'm safe there.
Yeah, I think you're sweet. And I've read something today about podcasting that I'll send to you after, but essentially, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, they're saying that 90% of content is going to be AI generated. And so if you're only investing in content, then eventually you're slowly going to get drowned out. You can still, you know, forge a path, but it's going to get harder and harder. But what is becoming more and more important to do is build community. And the best way to do that, well, one of the best ways is building a podcast. So a lot of people are saying
storytelling, right?
Yeah, and like you can actually get to know someone. Like we're so used to these bite-sized snippets of 15 seconds of a politician having a whinge, and then all of a sudden you got someone like Punters Politics that's sitting down with David Pocock for 30 minutes having a yarn, and you're like, oh, he's a human.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, so I work in marketing, and we constantly look at like attention spans, and with the advent of TikTok and Reels, and we watch like people's attention spans shrinking. So for me then to go and invest my time and energy in a long form podcast, it's kind of, it might seem a little bit backwards, but for me, I think, and you know, thankfully the audience is seeming to really enjoy it, but I think there's still a place for those longer, deeper conversations, and like, you can't get to know someone in 30 seconds. So an hour of sitting down and having a conversation with someone, I think, is still really valuable. And a lot of the people I've had on the show are people that I've known for a long time. And it's fascinating that almost every single time I've sat down with one of these people, I've learnt stuff about them. I'm like, I've known you for 20 years, man. How did I not know that? But in this day and age, when do you ever sit down with someone for an hour without your phone, without any distractions, and just have a one-on-one conversation?
Doesn't really happen.
It doesn't happen. And so for me, I think that's where, you know, I'm getting personal enjoyment from this, and then also the audience gets to hear interesting stories from people that they might not ever have heard of before. So I think that as much as like content is changing and consumption of content is changing, in some respects, there's still, like, I think there's really still a place for long form content, and you know, for films, that's definitely still the case.
Yeah, and like the storytelling side of things, it's how we communicate, it's how we share knowledge. You know, Indigenous people for tens of thousands of years have sat around fires telling stories, and we love doing it. And even just recently, bear with me on this one, I'll bring it back, but I was sitting around with a few mates around a fire and we were thinking about virtual reality, and made this example, like, you know, the game GTA, Grand Theft Auto. Imagine like using like VR goggles and being able to play GTA, and you're actually living it, and you're doing all these stunts, and like you're skydiving out of a plane, and you know, and we were like throwing out all these scenarios, and then, you know, and then one of the boys was like, yeah, but once we got sick of that, we'd probably just be back sitting around the fire having a yarn with one another.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's exactly right. Like, there's all these fads, but storytelling's going to last as a standard time.
Man, I just spent 3 weeks up in the Cape doing exactly that. Sitting around campfires, talking crap with the boys and telling each other stories, and like, for me, that's so enriching, and I enjoy that so much.
Yeah.
And you know, having no reception, so people aren't on their phones, you're sitting there and you're actually having real conversations with people, and I think it's so valuable, particularly as everything becomes more and more digital and content and on demand, and you know, you've got everything at your fingertips. It's kind of nice just to, like, I don't want to say devolve, but like take a step back and just go back to that old school conversation.
Yeah, and one thing I realised, because back in the day, like, I went through a period in my mid-20s where I was pretty self-conscious, and you know, I'd been down that partying route, and I was a bit of a shell of human and just really lacking self-confidence. And I struggled to feel like my 2 cents was worth sharing. So if I did eventually have a story to share, I just like spit it out, you know? And as I've progressed and like worked through stuff and got more and more confidence, I've realized, hold on, like sometimes it is worth taking that extra minute to slow down, add a pause, and tell the story and do it justice. And people are craving genuine stories, and it's hard to connect with a 15-second reel, but that's why we're circling back to things like podcasts, because people want connection and they want depth.
Yes, instead of that like transient nature of like flicking through reels, and it's like, I mean, they call it doom scrolling for a reason, but it doesn't add any value, right? And I'm generalizing, I'm sure people get great value out of TikTok or whatever, but yeah, for me, I think there's still a place in long form content, and you know, good films that you can sit down and be completely engaged with for hours at a time, like that's fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
You take something away and you'll remember it, as opposed to just this like instant gratification, little dopamine hit that you sort of get from the short form stuff.
Yeah, and I've sort of got in this headspace where, you know, short form, like there's no good, but then also some people are really mastering it. And one thing I did recently, I went through my followers from the last like 10 years, and I took stock on them. I'm like, wait, I don't even give a crap about 20% of what these people are doing anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing against them, but I'm going to tailor my feed to what I want to be learning about.
Yeah.
And so you can actually use it in a tool to learn. Like, even like we were just talking about Outback Mike, survivalist, follow him, for example, and every day you can learn a bit about the bush. So my feed is now tailored to suit what I want to ingest. And I feel like it can be used as a tool in that sense. But then, you know, ultimately that can be the lasso that captivates people to go in and watch the longer form stuff where you can really have an impact.
Yeah, well, and that's my strategy, right? Like, you know, my Instagram for the outer side is all short form snippets of the conversations, and the intent is someone will see that and go, hey, I want to know more about this person. That guy sounds interesting, and then go and watch the long form. And, you know, I think there's definitely a place for both, but I'd hate to see a world where people stop making films, stop making long form content because the audience doesn't click on it. But I don't think that we're there at all. I think you look at Joe Rogan as an example, like the most popular podcast in the world. His episodes are 3 hours long. Like, I can't listen to one of them. Unless I'm in the car you're doing a long distance trip, I will never listen to one of his episodes in its entirety because I've got stuff to do, right? But, you know, I think absolutely it's important that we continue to focus on, you know, you said it, deep connections and like getting into stories, taking a while to explain the detail and having the pause, and you know, and like allowing people to have their input, and you know, a conversation doesn't have to be linear. It suits me that it's not linear because I have ADHD, so I can't like focus on one thing for too long. But I think it's an art form that it's not lost, but I think maybe, you know, with all the changes in technology, maybe we've moved away from it a little bit, and I'd love to see more of it.
Yeah, and just recently I had a yarn on another potty, and I was saying, I'm like we're all storytellers, and for so long I didn't identify as a storyteller, you know, and like everyone has come home from a terrible day at work and whinged about how bad their boss is and said how old mate stole their last beer at a party. Like, this is a story, and the sooner we lean into it, the sooner we realise that it is one of, if not the best way of passing on knowledge. Like Indigenous Australians, that's how they've been such successful caretakers of the land for tens of thousands of years, passing on wisdom in stories. And more importantly, like, there's a lot of focus on the actual storytelling, but the listening side of things as well is often overlooked. And so I found, again, back to that part of my life where I was in a rut. I was just like so in my head, getting prepared to respond instead of actually being actively engaged to what they're saying and trying to understand it on a deeper level. And so listening is something that I'm trying to drum into these kids. I'm like, oh, just don't overlook it. And like, it's okay to ask silly questions. It's okay to ask for clarification. But yeah, listening to understand.
And it's also okay to say nothing sometimes.
Yeah.
That's something that I had to learn, you know. I was always very quick to respond, and, you know, as you said, always thinking about like what you're going to say next, as opposed to actively listening to what the person has to say.
Yeah.
And I think it's a skill that we all need. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
You know?
It's tricky. And like, we build rapport with people by sharing similarities and comparing war stories. And I love doing that. But just recently, like a friend, he finally like opened up about this win he'd had, and he was proud of himself. And I could feel myself wanting to like swoop in and, you know, oh, guess what I did, like, and sort of steal the limelight back and like build the rapport. And then I'm like, remember what mum told me, like, hey, like sometimes it's okay to just like nurture that person and let them have the limelight.
Yep.
And instead of going straight into something about myself, ask some follow-up questions, get them to like explain how that felt, and get them to really like savor that moment.
Yeah, it's super powerful, man. It's something I think we all need to do. And that was a big part of why I started doing this, right? Like, to become a better listener.
Yeah.
And it's not just a monologue of me talking. It's finding out, you know, what makes other people tick, and hearing their experiences. And sure, it's a conversation, but like, this isn't just, come and tune in to listen to Tony talk about himself for an hour every week, because like, I don't want to do that, and no one wants to listen to it. So I think it's really interesting that, you know, we've both kind of had that same, I guess, transition through our lives. And I think it comes with maturity as well.
Yeah.
Comes with maturity.
And also just acknowledging that you do have a gift worth giving. And
Everyone's got a story to tell, right?
Yeah. Everyone's an expert in something, like, even if it might not feel like it. And often it comes, for me anyway, I've noticed that what I feel like some of the gifts I have to give are the stories that I didn't want to tell.
Yes.
You know, like the stories when I'd been in this rut and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be here anymore, and then being able to come out, see the other side, and then walk friends through that and be able to reflect on the role that nature played in my healing. And that is something I wanted to bring out in the films. It's like, you know, we invest in like medical clinics, and like you can go get free drugs for depression and all this sort of stuff, which, you know, each to their own, it has its place. But when it comes to the outdoors, the government doesn't seem to see that as a valuable asset that can help with mental health. And so for me, I genuinely feel like the outdoors showed me beauty when I lacked seeing, like when I was really struggling to see beauty in the world, I had no friends. I went out into the bush and I was reminded that it's there and it's always going to be there. Well, I hope it is.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, a bit of an asterisk on that one. I like to think that if we do, dwindle away and, something happens, like Earth's going to take back over and
I
peace
reckon it
restored.
will.
Yeah.
I reckon it will. And you're right, man. Like, excuse me. You talk about like mental health. I'm a huge advocate for going and throwing yourself in a cold ocean, not off a cliff. Just let's be clear here, but going and jumping in some cold salt water is so good for your mental health. Like just the simplest of things, right? I'm blessed in that I live near the coast, so I can do that. It's accessible to me. But cold water immersion, like going for a bushwalk, just anything in the outdoors is so good for you. And you're right, we, particularly in the society that we live in now, people look for, not people look for, but doctors are quick to prescribe a synthetic solution when like really maybe people just need to go out and, I don't know, breathe some fresh air and, I don't know, look at some trees or something. It sounds really silly when you say it like that, but I definitely think there's something in it, eh?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just think about evolution. Like we have evolved in the bush, climbing trees, barefoot, running around nude in the bush. And we wonder why we get such a thrill when we strip our jocks off and go for a skinny dip in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like it's in us. And sometimes you just need a bit of a wake-up call to realise it's there for the taking. You just need to sometimes just go for it, even if no one wants to go with you. And that's what I was doing in the early days of my recovery of sorts.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, oh, well, no one around. I better just go stand up by myself. And I found real solace in suffering. And I know that sounds heavy, but, like David Goggins, for example, I remember stumbling upon his stuff in the early days where I was like just sort of coming out the other side and should I spend my last $200 on a festival ticket or should I sign up to an ultra marathon when I haven't ran in a long time?
Yeah.
And I'm like, looks like I'm doing a marathon. And I went down that whole endurance route. And when you're suffering like that and you're grinding away, you really get to know yourself. You get to know the excuses you come up with. And often those same excuses pop up in your everyday life. So when your alarm goes off in the morning and you're thinking about the big day of work ahead, I just reflect on times when I've been running on fumes and I've been bushwalking for a month straight and I'm struggling and grinding. I feel like I'm going to die. And then hitting snooze on that alarm just feels like a cop-out and it's time to get up and buckle up. So, and like that's one side of it, like pushing yourself in the outdoors. But on the contrary, I think if you're constantly going outdoors and just getting your adrenaline rush, just getting this adventure fix, you can leave a bit on the table. And so that's why I was saying earlier, going out and slowing down, leaving the fishing rod at home, leaving the phone at home and just chilling, having a picnic, getting a book, sitting in the one spot and just watching the world go by. And I know it sounds like a bit like airy-fairy, but there's something to it.
No, there absolutely is, man. I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more. And, I'm right into my four-wheel drives, right? So I spend heaps of time driving around in the bush. And that's fantastic. And I still get to appreciate nature and I see animals and I see amazing places. But something that I try and do and something that, I'm doing more of now is I'll take the four-wheel drive out and then I'll park it somewhere and walk up a mountain or go explore a stream and walk down the stream in places you can't get a car, and you see everything in a different light and you see different things to what you would experience in the car. And I think there's always more, right? There's always more to see. And what you said about macro photography, I think is fascinating. Like you're literally zooming right in on the tiniest of things in this huge environment and seeing things from a completely different perspective.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's about exploring the outdoors. But for me, I see the outdoors as the ultimate canvas to explore yourself and to get to know yourself. And so when I go for a run or when I go for a walk, headphones are out. I want to hear that internal voice telling me to stop and I want to get to know it.
Yeah.
And so then when push comes to shove and I need to dismiss that voice when it really counts, I'm just used to it.
It's really fascinating you say that. I had a guest on the podcast a little while ago, a guy called Luke Sullivan. He's a local here on the coast, and he does human performance coaching. And he mentioned the same thing about going for a run when it's cold and it's raining and it's dark and not having headphones in and just going out and just experiencing it for what it is and not having any of those comforts. And he's another one that I did some breath work coaching with him coaching me. And one of the things that he said was no snoozing. Like, set your alarm for 5:30 and get up every morning and get up without hitting the snooze button. And I was like, it seems like a pretty basic thing, but it's the start of the day, right? It's like, nah, from the get-go, as soon as that alarm goes off, there's no shortcuts, there's no excuses, right? So it's really interesting and to hear you say very similar things. And if you guys haven't listened to that episode with Luke yet, I bit of self-promotion here, but you should check it out because he's a fascinating dude and he's got some really interesting perspectives on this stuff.
Yeah, I'd be keen to meet him. He sounds like a legend.
Yeah, he's a G. And it's interesting because he does a lot of work with youth justice up here on the coast as well. And so similarities with you in terms of, like helping youngsters and guiding them in the outdoors and taking them out to experience things like rock climbing and abseiling. So some real similarities there. So, mate, actually, I just remembered, I meant to start with a fast five and I completely forgot because we got straight into the conversation and I've been enjoying it. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
All right, here we go.
You get a free plane ticket to anywhere in the world. Where are you going?
Oh, I'm going to Faroe Islands. That's like not too far away from Norway. It's off the northwestern coast of Europe.
Why do I know the Faroe Islands? Is there like wildlife?
It has the craziest coastline I've ever seen. It kind of looks like Iceland.
It's Farow.
Faroe, Faroe.
Oh.
It's a bit expensive, so that's why I've kind of been like putting it on the back burner, but I'd love to get out there in a sea kayak and explore some of that coastline.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good answer. Best movie of all time?
That's crazy. I'm going to throw in The Alpinist. Recently, that's by a guy from Canada, Marc-Andre Leclerc. So people would have heard of Alex Honnold. He's the free soloist that climbed El Cap.
Yeah.
That was pioneering. Marc-Andre Leclerc is the Alpinist version of Alex Honnold, and he's done some amazing things. So highly recommend checking out The Alpinist.
I will. That's cool. If you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
An orca.
Yeah, sick.
An orca. People say great whites are the top of the food chain, but orcas eat them for brekkie.
Yeah, they eat their livers.
Yeah. I find them fascinating. Like, there's yarns of orcas teaming up with whales and humans. Orcas teaming up with humans down in Eden, which is down south.
With the whalers, right?
Yeah, and the orcas would round up the whales, steer them into the bay down there, and like this one called, I think, Uncle Tom, he would jump out of the water, belly flop, and then that would signal the humans to come out in their boats. And they had this relationship with the humans where they would hunt the whales together. They would get harpooned, and then the whales, the orcas would take them down, eat the liver, and then the rest would float up for the humans. And,
yeah, I've heard that story. It's wild, man.
And also, I love the fact that there's no recorded deaths in the wild of orcas killing humans.
No.
But they've killed humans in captivity, and I feel like that speaks volumes. It's like, leave us alone.
Yeah, we're not meant to be here. Yeah, fully. That's so fascinating to me. Hey, I did know that they've never killed anyone in the wild, but they have in captivity. It's a sign, right? That's a good answer. I like that one. What was your dream job as a kid?
I wanted to play for Australia in soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty into it when I was younger. And then I realised there's more to life. And, each to their own, but I want to try everything.
Yep.
And I feel like to make it in sport at a high level, you kind of got to dedicate your life to it.
Yeah, you got to do one thing, right? Yeah, I'm a little bit the same in that regard. Like, I'm not really good at anything, but I have like a functional knowledge of lots of things.
What's your answer for that one?
I wanted to be an Air Force pilot, but
Sick.
I tried to go down the path and I instantly failed because I had ADHD and I was medicated for ADHD.
Yeah, right.
And they were like, yeah, no, you can't fly a fighter plane. I was like, damn it.
That's a cop out, eh?
Yeah, but I still think that would be the sickest job. And like talking to Outback Mike about, flying planes in the army and stuff, I just go, oh yeah. Every Anzac Day down here on the coast, they do the F-35 flyover, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be a pretty good job.
You're a rev head, hey?
Hard. Anything that goes fast, man. What would you eat for your last meal?
Oh, wow. These are good questions. I've got to just spit one out.
And these are not from ChatGPT, I would like to add. These are questions I've come up with myself.
What I eat? Some of the fish I was hooking into over in Exmouth when I spent 3 months living there. Maybe some coral trout, and a mate, he cut the skin off and made this crackle with the coral trout, and just, I don't know, he cooked it like an absolute lord. So yeah, I'd probably run with something like that, just fresh out of the ocean. You can't really beat it.
100%, man. And I've had that coral trout skin before. It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Bit of Kewpie.
Yeah, brother. Oh man, seafood is, it's hard to beat. So sorry for the little diversion there. As I said, I meant to do that at the start of the episode, but I frequently forget because I get carried away.
ADHD.
Yeah, bro. It's a challenge, but it's fun. So you've mentioned, the filmmaking, and you're working on a couple of films at the moment. So you want to tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah. It's hard to know where to start. I think it might be worth dropping in where a couple of years ago, back end of COVID, I was lost, and had been in a relationship, had a great time, but it was time for the next step. And I'm like, okay, what next? And so I sort of packed up shop and spent the best part of a year hitchhiking a full lap around Australia.
Wow.
And so that was kind of like a late pilgrimage of sorts, stepping into adulthood as a youngster in Australia. The closest thing we have to initiation is going to your first 3-day festival and getting on a bender.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of a late initiation of sorts, and I got a real taste for what Australia's about, documented a lot of it, and, I could go into stories about that journey all day long, but it was unreal. It ended up being close to 25,000 clicks, 200 lifts, and met a bunch of legends. And I sort of wrapped up that whole extravaganza with a bushwalk from the top of the Wallamai, inland from Newcastle, 600 kilometres south, down to the Budawangs. And that was the bow tie on the whole experience. And I finished that, and then I'm like, all right, now what? I need to sink my teeth into something. I've seen little bits and pieces around Australia. I've seen a lot that I like, and I've seen even more that I don't like in terms of some of the environmental degradation going on around, all the mines. And I'm, Australia's got to the point where it is because we have used our resources, and I'm a beneficiary of that, I understand. Yep. But I think, there's, ultimately we need to be looking after the joint better. So yep. I finished the lap. I went down to Tassie and immersed myself in the whole environmental scene down there. Not trying to get, I wasn't chaining myself onto diggers. I wasn't climbing trees. I was just getting a lay of the land, and started learning about native forest logging, started learning about salmon farming, and realizing that that place on the surface looks amazing, but once you dig a little deeper, there's a whole lot going on. And so I started documenting that journey, and it was wild. And I'm kind of thinking dude, you got to pull something out of your bum here. We need it. We need more filmmakers that are going to speak their mind. And, I just had a feeling I could maybe tell a story in a different way, and maybe I'm a bit arrogant, but just trying to follow the story, and I'm zigzagging all over the shop, bit ADHD as well. And then I was just kind of there's so much to take in. This is crazy. And I'm like, maybe I need to buy myself a bit of time and take a bit of weight off my shoulders and help someone else on their journey. And I kid you not, a couple of weeks later, this dude popped up down there. He'd spent 2 years collecting rubbish on the beaches down in Tasmania, predominantly from salmon farms and oyster farms. And he'd built a Mad Max looking raft out of it. And he was going to sail from Hobart to Sydney to spread awareness about the way in which our actions impact the environment.
Wow.
And I'm like, perfect, I'll go have a cuppa with this bloke, maybe do a quick interview if I'm lucky, and then that can give me a bit of inspiration and, maybe help him a bit too. one thing led to another, and I ended up spending a couple of months in total on the vessel with him, you know, sailing up the east coast to Tassie and then helping him cross the Bass Strait. And, you know, that's one of the films, so I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with it because hopefully there's still a surprise element with the film, but his journey, Samuel McLennan, like, he's a phenomenal guy. He's a life coach, and I spent the first month on the vessel, and we got across to Flinders Island, across the Bank Strait, which is one of the most notorious straits in the world, and people are saying to us, like, you're going to die and all this sort of stuff, and I'm like, never been on a sailing boat before, like, didn't know any better. I just believed in this fella. Telling his story, tagging along for the ride, picking up rubbish, meeting heaps of characters as we go, having a bloody ball. And he pulled up stumps at Flinders for a few months. And I had a feeling he was going to nestle in and sit out the winter. And so I'm like, well, I better just keep doing my thing for a bit and I'll go back when the time's right. And so I went back to my hometown of Canberra and I just decompressed for the first time in like a year and a half, 2 years since starting the hitchhiking. And I started going out to my local waterfall that's been closed for 20 years. It used to be the second most visited place in the Canberra region. And I was like, why is this place closed? It doesn't make sense. Like, this is such a gem and it's a shame that the next generation doesn't get to come through and use it. So I started trying to get to the bottom of it. And I thought maybe I could just tell like a 5-10 minute story, just highlighting this place and putting a bit of a question mark over the whole story. And fast forward a month or two, the property blocking access to the falls went up for sale for the first time in 40 years.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, okay, this is a bit like weird. What's going on here? Fast forward another month and A-class Hollywood blockbuster production filmed at the falls. And I happened to go before I snuck onto the set whilst they were there. And I legally followed the Murrumbidgee and then stayed below the high water mark up the creek.
Which you can do.
Yeah, which you can do if you're fishing.
Yep.
Abided by the rules. And yeah, captured some stuff that would probably shock a lot of people. And again, like, there's only so much I want to get into here, but that whole story of just my local waterfall just opened up this can of worms, and it made me take a step back and look at the bigger picture and realize this isn't an isolated incident. Like, this is going on around the country. And then, you know, drum roll, your petition comes up out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, so I've gone from like, you know, feeling like I'm the only one out there that seems to be like probing into this, like no one's talking about it. Then all of a sudden you put this petition up and it goes viral. How many signatures did it get?
We got 27,310 signatures, I think, from memory. That number's shaky, but it was 27,000.
So people care, and that confirmed what I'd always thought. And yeah, so it was a bit of like a green flag that I was on the right track, but just not knowing where this track is going. And there was a pivotal interview I got with David Pocock that, again, made me feel it just was a reward for grinding. And just, you know, I was like, had the option to work, but I was just like, literally just like scraping by on the poverty line, just full like going down this investigative journalism route that I've never been down before, like banging my head against the wall, like trying to interview anyone that would talk to me, and then just learning as I went. And, you know, I started collaborating with some of the local TOs from the Ngunnawal mob and realizing that at the end of the day, like, I can have my perspective and it's good to voice that. It's really good to talk about these things that you're passionate about. But ultimately, who am I as a 31-year-old male to think that I know what's best for the place? And I could quite well be best positioned for this one little case study and to give a valuable 2 cents. But ultimately, that land was Ngunnawal Ngambri land for 20,000+ years. And it was unfairly taken. That's another whole story in of itself.
Yes.
And maybe, just maybe, their 2 cents should be at the forefront of what happens to this place going forward. And so that was a bit of an eye-opener for me that, you know, my me on the mic probably isn't the best thing as the key focus of this film. Like, it should be about talking and connecting with the right people and getting a collaborative effort. And so that's sort of been something that has been just tinkering away for a year, and, you know, got the call up from Samuel again, and then I was back on the rubbish raft and then back to the falls, and I've kind of just been going back and forth between these two films for the last year and a half, and just scratching my head on, like, where do these stories end, because they keep taking so many twists and turns. And here I am trying to, like, learn a little bit off you about how that process was, and, you know, what we can learn and hopefully pass on to other people moving forward.
Mate, that is absolutely fascinating. I don't even know where to begin with all of that, but I suppose, you know, working backwards, what you just said then about, you know, who are you to have an opinion on it? I think we're all entitled to an opinion on, particularly when it comes to public land. And that's what anyone that follows me or has listened to the podcast would know, that what I'm so focused on is public land access. And that could be national park, state forest, crown land, you name it, right? There is so much public land in this country, and then when we're being restricted in terms of access by bureaucrats and politicians for whatever reason, but then they're approving large-scale, you know, coal mines or gas mines, or they're doing fracking, or, you know, huge forestry operations, and you're like, well, you're talking about conservation, but then you're also approving mining and large-scale environmental destruction. So is it about conservation or is it about money? And I guess for me, I do not claim to have all of the answers. I'm just a guy with an opinion. And for me, I'm so interested in talking to people like yourself and anyone who uses public land to get their perspective on it. And I think what I'd love to see is, when we see decisions being made by bureaucrats and politicians, and we talk about community consultation, I want that term to actually mean something. Because at the moment, it's a box ticking exercise. Stakeholder engagement and community consultation is the biggest load of horse shit in this country, pardon my French, but it's not true. And then so often when public submissions are received, noted and ignored. And I think for me, I just want to see a position that we can get to where there's a bit of give and take, there's input from traditional owners, there's input from key industry bodies, there's input from community stakeholders, and we get to something that's a mutually beneficial relationship when it comes to our engagement with public land. That's ultimately what it all comes down to. I don't know if I'm going to get anywhere, but I'm not going to sit back and watch it get taken away and then whinge about it afterwards, because that ain't going to help anyone, right? So if I can help in some way just to start conversations, then ultimately that's all I'm trying to do. I'm really fascinated about the hitchhiking thing. We'll get back to the rubbish raft, because that's also so wild that we need to talk about it. But hitchhiking used to be a real thing in this country. Like, it was pretty common, right? Ivan Milat had something to do with that becoming less socially acceptable, I think. And
then also the government put out a bit of a campaign against it. It used to be, you know, a normal thing. Like, our parents
help a bloke out.
It was kind of just like, you know, save fuel and you know, do the right thing. And then old mate Milat kind of shifted the whole the narrative around it a bit. But yeah, like, what do you want to know?
What I want to know is, hitchhiking now is something like, I remember as a kid, I grew up in the 80s, right? So as a kid, I remember seeing people hitchhiking pretty commonly. Like, you'd see people with the thumb out on the road. It wasn't an uncommon sight. Now, it's a rare sight, generally speaking. If I see someone trying to hitch a lift, I'm like, oh, like, I notice it. It's unusual. So when you decided to undertake a lap of Australia via hitchhiking, which I think is awesome, did you have any, like, trepidation? Was there any fear?
Yeah, there was a healthy dose of fear. And just even the way it came about, like, it had been lingering in the subconscious for a little while, and I was parting ways with my missus, and we're talking it through, and I'm like, I just need to, like, you know, like, go hitchhiking around Australia or something. And I was like, wait, where did that come from?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I need to do this. And then I kind of ummed and ahed for a year. And I started, you know, whispering that I might do it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was a perfect opportunity to work on parts of myself that needed improvement. Like we talked about, I wanted to be a better listener. I wanted to be better at going with the flow. And I wanted to see what Australia was really about instead of just going to all the best places, and sort of just see it for what it actually is. And so, yeah, I was a little bit worried, but I genuinely do try to see the best in people. And on the back end of COVID, I needed some sort of reminder that we've got one another's back. And I figured this is a really good opportunity to go out and see who does have my back. And this is back end of COVID. 200 lifts, not a single time did someone ask me if I was vaccinated.
Yeah.
And even though the 200 people gave me a lift, there was another 100 or so that would have pulled over and given me a cold beer or a can of Coke. Yeah. And I found the further I got away from cities, the more helpful people were.
100%.
Yeah, and it's just
100%.
It's kind of like the bystander effect, you know, like I was on the outskirts of Perth. I just slept in the middle of the city. I'm 4 months into the journey. I slept in the middle of the city. I'd ran out of money. I'd smashed my laptop. Needed to get my drone fixed, and I was like starting to reconsider the whole thing. Slept in a park with other homeless people nearby, like full like wigging out. I remember setting up like a stick barricade around my tent as a protection. And then I got a fishing line. This is a good tip if you're up in the top end. I set up a tripwire all around my stick barricade with pots and pans and stuff. So if anyone walked through it, my pots and pans would wake me up, and people would do that with salties up in the top end. And I was wigging out and anyways, I walked out of town, spent an hour and a half, and I calculated like 3,000 to 5,000 cars went past me in that hour or so, and barely anyone looked at me. And I'm just like reconsidering it and just like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden this babe pulls over and picks me up, and she was about to go perform at a gig as the lead violinist. And I was backstage with them filming like an hour later, and I'm like, this is like what it's all about. And so many times I finally like let my impatience get the best of me, and I just had like a little internal tanty kicking up a stink, and then someone would pull over and give me a lift. It was like I was rewarded for finally caving. It was backwards. It was so weird, but yeah, it was really fascinating. Like of the 200 people, there was only 2 or 3 people that I prefer probably not to see again.
Yeah.
I never really felt like overly threatened.
That was just a bit weird.
Yeah, probably druggo sort of vibe, and speeding, and like there was a few truckies I was in the car with, and they were going like 120, 130, bucketing down raining in like a 90 zone or 100 zone on their phone. And like, I feel like we're about to go off the side of the road, then he'd just like save it last minute, and just trippers. And I just tried to go with the flow and just what will be sort of thing. But yeah, there was just time after time, I was surprised by people's generosity. And often we're sitting in the car, no music. I'm just sitting there. I didn't have money a lot of the time, so all I had to give was my attention. And that's when I like truly realized how important it is to give your presence. Like, you know, like I offered people to, you know, buy a coffee or a lunch, and they're like, like often they didn't take me up on it, but I could just tell how much they really enjoyed being heard. And, you know, the first 5 minutes we're talking about my stories, and I'm telling them a couple yarns, and then often it would go just onto them. And like the stuff that people told me about, I was like the Dr. Phil therapist hitchhiking around the country, just like taking on people's baggage. It was sick. Like,
but isn't that so true? Like, people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to just get stuff off their chest, and sometimes doing that with a complete stranger is easier than someone that you've known your whole life, or a family member.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, an actual therapist.
And like, that was something that I've struggled to admit. Like, a part of the reason why I did it to begin with, you know, like it was because I wanted to work on myself, and I wanted a challenge, and I wanted to see the country. But ultimately, underneath all of that, I think it's because I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be valued. And in today's society, to be those things, it feels like you have to do something different. You have to get runs on the board. And for me, I'm like, all right, if I need to go put it on the line to make my 2 cents valuable and make it heard, like that's what I got to do, I guess. Like, it's like, are you going to listen to a PT that's 50 kilos overweight?
No.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you want to listen to someone that has life experience, and
Yeah.
so I'm like, I better go get some.
That is so impressive, dude. That's truly unbelievable. And I have no data to support what I'm about to say, but I would guess that you are one of a very, very small group of people that has hitchhiked around Australia.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really care, but you know, if anyone wants to sponsor me, I might go hitchhike in another country. No, it's actually funny. As I did it the other day. I was sort of stuck. I'd just been filming this, like helping a mate out with a whale migration doco and working with some of the TOs up in Coffs Harbour. And I needed to get back down here, and I missed 2 buses. So I was sitting around at a servo for 8 hours waiting for buses that never came. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Looks like I'm getting the thumb back out again. And I'm like, you know, I'm pretty good at this. Like, this will be a piece of cake. Nothing.
Really?
For like 3 hours. And I'm like, nah, fuck. Excuse my language. I'm like, nah, I'm done. Like, I'm having a break from this hitchhiking thing.
Yeah.
So as soon as you think like you're, you know, good at it, you get a wake up call. And it's easy for me to say as like a 6 foot male, yeah, it's safe, go do it. But it may be a different story if you're a female. Well, it probably would be.
Absolutely.
But in saying that, I met a lady, she was probably like late 20s. She'd spent 6 years hitchhiking around Europe, 40 different countries. And she's never had an issue. And she said Australia's one of the best places for it.
Really?
Yeah. But there is stories of backpackers going missing. It's like, there's always going to be like outliers, but generally speaking, I think if you can do it in the daytime, if you can like avoid going to super remote places, sometimes if I felt a bit sketchy about the scenario, I might take a photo of the number plate, send it off to someone, and then like, you know, just keep your wits about you. You don't have to get in the car.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you can do that very quick judgment of someone, you know, the first sort of 10 seconds of talking to them, like, oh, okay, yeah, that dude looks a bit scary.
Funny, your whole life you're taught not to judge a book by a cover, but with hitchhiking you genuinely have to.
Absolutely have to do that.
And people are doing that to you too when they drive past. So I remember I had a job interview a little while ago, and they said, this is to get a guiding gig. They're like, teach me something. And I'm like, oh, I'll take the piss here. Like, yeah, I'll teach you the 5 Ps of hitchhiking. And I like literally made this up like 20 minutes before. I can't remember them all, but I'm like, I think it was like presentation, like how you look, positioning, really important, picking somewhere where cars can actually pull over. I think posture might have been another one, like actually standing up on the side of the road, like glasses off, like with intent, you know, a bit of a smile. And then once you actually, once they pull over, positivity, like really good energy, having a chat with them and trying to like, you know, just let them know that you're like a half decent human. And then once you're in the vehicle, presence. So giving them the time of day, because often I'd get in the vehicle, they're like, yeah, I'll take you to the next town. And I'm like thinking in the back of my mind, they're going like where I need to go 6 hours away. Like, and so
how do I make them want me in their vehicle for longer?
Yeah, literally. It's like, it's almost like a little bit manipulative, but I just tried to give them the time of day, and then often they were willing to bend over backwards to help me out because I was there to help them too in a way.
But it's a symbiotic relationship in that they're helping you get where you need to go, and maybe you're helping them. Maybe they're having a terrible day and they just need to get some stuff off their chest, and you're a non-judgmental, completely impartial person to listen to.
And, you know, like speaking of symbiotic relationship, I'd done like 9 months of it, and I got back up to the Kimberley. And mind you, like a lot of the hitching I did was in the build-up in the Kimberley. So 40 degrees, like walking around with like 20 litres of water, just like not a good time to, like that was my initiation into hitchhiking, going up to the Kimberley. And I went back 9 months later. I'm back at a spot where I'd hitched near the start. And I remember the first time there, I was like trembling, like, oh wow, like I need to get 6 hours to Fitzroy Crossing. This is crazy. And then my next time there, I needed to get like 6,000 kilometers away from Derby No, I needed to get from Exmouth to Gold Coast in a week, which is 6,500 Ks.
Yeah.
And I was a couple thousand Ks in, up on the outskirts of Derby. And I'm like, I'm back here. This guy pulls over in a road train, and within like 20 minutes, he's showing me photos videos on his phone, him like driving along on the back of a ute in the desert, jumps off his ute, he's bareback, he jumps straight onto a camel. He's bareback in this camel, riding along, filming himself. And I'm like, who is this guy? And no, I kid you not, like 30 minutes later, he's like just driving along, and he was like 25, hooligan, like nice dude. And he's like, yeah, bro, you want to have a steer? And I'm like, what do you mean? And like instantly he's just like out of the driver's seat, holding on. He hops out and ushers me in. I'm locked in, 130 ton road train, 3 carriages on the back, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I was not expecting this. And he's like, yeah, turn the steering wheel a bit. And I turn the steering wheel the tiniest bit, and the 3rd carriage at the back starts like swaying out and like nearly going off the side of the road. And I'm like wigging out, like, this is crazy. And I'm like honking the horn and like having a bit of fun with it. And just as I'm about to get out of the hot seat, another road train's coming straight at us, and we're on this skinny road going 110. And I'm just like peeking, hugging up as close to the side of the road as possible, just locked in. And even he was wigging out, and he was like fearless. And we go past this other road train, and we just rattle, and it feels like the revision mirror is like nearly hit. Yeah. And I'm like trying to stay on the road. And as soon as we got past that road train, I looked at him, and I just didn't even need to say anything. And he just smiled, and he just like, good job, bro. Like, I should
probably take the wheel.
Yeah, it's like,
wow.
You like, when do you get those sorts of experiences?
In my life, never. So, mate, just before we wrap it up, the rubbish raft.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you're making a film about this, so we're not going to give away the whole story. But do you have any sailing experience?
No.
And you decided to jump on a sailing yacht raft made of rubbish and cross the Bass Strait, which is arguably one of the most hectic waterways in the world.
Yeah, when you meet Samuel, if you ever get the chance to, he's making his way up the coast. I hope if anyone that hears this gets the opportunity to pop in on Samuel from Project Interrupt, they go and say g'day, because he's an interesting fella. He definitely has a, go to battle with him kind of vibe about the fella. Good. And he's a surfer, he's a waterman, and I saw how calculated he was when it came to weather. And I know people have kayaked across the Bass Strait when you get the right condies. But let's be real, it was probably a bit of a tale of ignorance is bliss. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know when it come to sailing. And I knew what his vision was. It aligned with what my vision was. And, like at the end of the day, like, I genuinely feel like if we keep going down this route as a society and keep chewing up the environment and keep going the way we're going, like, it's not looking amazing. Like,
no.
Whether it's 50 years time where we can't swim in the oceans or 500 years, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is we're going down this trajectory that I don't like. And I felt like sooner or later, I need to start taking some big risks and putting my money where my mouth was. And this was a good opportunity. And ultimately, he isn't in a rush, and I liked that. And so when you see his vessel, it's about 7 meters long. He spent 2 years building, building, and he met someone that had built a raft that had sailed across, I think, the Pacific, that just happened to live around the corner. Yeah, and he was involved in the process. And so he built this thing so strong. The way he got the vessel from the property where he built it into the water was a helicopter. So picking up this, like, I think it was close to a ton or even more at the time, lifting it over, putting it in the water. And yeah, just being a part of something like that was pretty special. But the craziest thing, right? The part that scared me the most wasn't the fact that we're jumping on the raft and going across the Bass Strait. It was that I knew the conversations we were going to have in that month crossing or however long it took were going to be heavy.
Yep.
And so Samuel's the life coach. We always have crazy D&Ms. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't shy away from asking difficult questions, and that's what I like about him. And so I knew getting back on the vessel, the first time I was on there, you know, I was drinking a little bit, we had support vessels, and I kept a bit of distance. But next time around, the 2 support vessels, they were gone. And so for the major crossing of the journey, it was his first proper time doing an extended trip with no support vessels.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is it. Like, it's time to, like, you know, go through the archives and start talking about some past trauma and just working through some shit. And Samuel was the perfect person to explore that with. So yeah, it's a journey, and hopefully Samuel makes it all the way to Sydney, and he's currently on his way to Melbourne. His outboard motor just carked it, so he's got a little bit of a fundraiser going, trying to buy another outboard. And yeah, I back him, you know.
Yeah, sick. So we can probably help out with that. So that's Project Interrupt, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Project Interrupt.
Yeah, so is that, he's on socials?
Yeah, he is. And like, his work rate for this project is next level. Like, he's purely funded off money that he gets from his coaching, which is he'll do a call or 2 a week, and then he just gets little dribs and drabs of donations here and there. Every chance he gets, he's on beaches, cleaning up debris, going into schools, talking to students, rallying the community, and more importantly, putting up this metaphorical mirror and getting people to reflect on their relationship with the natural world, and getting people to consider how they can contribute, which can be confronting. Personally, I think that's part of the reason why he doesn't have a following like someone like Ned Brockman, who's just like, yeah, running Australia, bro, Australia. Like, you know, Ned's inspirational. Like, he is phenomenal. He started a tidal wave of endurance athletes chasing their dreams here.
Yep.
But, you know, a little bit surface level opposed to someone like Samuel that is like getting people to answer questions that they don't want to answer.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's fascinating, dude. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting down and talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the films. Whenever they get finalised, whenever you put the full stop on those stories, I think they're going to be really, really inspirational and really interesting pieces of content. So good on you for doing what you're doing, man. And if anyone wants to find out more about you or follow you, have you got like social media pages that they should check out?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the go.
Yep.
It's just Ben_there_done_that 94.
Yep.
I post a little bit on there, and YouTube's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Ben there, done that 94. But let's be real, like, I'm not super consistent. I'm constantly making videos for clients, so I feel like my stuff and the reels is just taking a back seat whilst I work on these bigger projects. So
yeah, no worries at all, man. Well, I'll drop a link to your socials in the video description or on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank you again, man. It's been a little bit of back and forth to get this conversation to happen, but it's been worth the wait. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been awesome. Now it's my turn to ask you some questions, hey?
Yeah, 100%. All right. We will see all of you next time on the outer side.